Welcome to Cascade Community Foundation's Q&A live stream series. Tonight, episode 2 of our 3rd season, a deep dive into one of America's most taboo topics, money, and the bold initiative on the part of area experts, residents, and business owners to help viewers like you unravel the mystery of why we so often avoid sharing our money woes. Throughout this episode, we're going inside the life of a business owner to better understand that fluid line between running a family business and raising a family. For those of you watching, our goal today is simple: to offer an inside perspective and help guide viewers, perhaps an entrepreneur like you, towards success and realizing the resources available on the front end that can help stave off both hurdles within a business and navigate what it means to manage a family business specifically. I'm joined now by Ellie Frey-Zagel, a family business life and leader coach and owner of Successful Generations, and Shannon Dwyer, a business development manager and commercial lender for Consumers Credit Union. Welcome. I'm going to get right into it. Ellie, with you, why do we struggle as a society to talk about money?
Oh my gosh, it's one of those age-old issues that we don't ever talk about, right? Like, in my family, we would never talk about money. It was just my dad said that there were just some strings attached to the word money that just could be very, very painful. And I think that we don't talk about money because we're told not to talk about money, and we don't have any expertise in talking about money. We think that nobody wants to hear about money, and we don't necessarily know what our own views are about money. And so for those reasons, I think that we don't talk about money.
Yeah, certainly a taboo topic. Shannon, you're directly in front of money on a daily basis.
Yes.
You must get this from your clients, customers that come in, the hesitation to talk about money. Why does that exist?
Yeah, I mean, and I couldn't agree with you more, Ellie. And I think in general, you can make assumptions about people, but the money side of things, it's private. Not everyone knows your finances, whereas on the baking side, when we're working with, whether it's individuals or businesses, I mean, they're completely exposed to us, right? They're opening up their tax returns and their financials, and they're trusting us to dive in. And I think sometimes business owners, when we ask questions, maybe they don't want to be questioned on the decisions they've made. When we're really just trying to gain an understanding, we want to know your business in and out if we're going to partner with you. So I think, like you said, it's not something that we're openly talking to our neighbor about money. We want to keep that private. And so, yeah, you're right, but that's definitely part of my everyday.
It's also, I think, an embarrassment too, or a fear of judgment. Mm-hmm. Because we don't know how to necessarily manage our money. We've never really been taught, because again, this is a taboo topic. Some of us have been taught, but most of us haven't. We don't want to necessarily be judged by how much money we are making or aren't making, or the conversations that we are having or aren't having, or the activities we are doing or aren't doing. Mm-hmm. Just because we don't know if those are necessarily the right things to do. So I think there's also maybe a little bit of embarrassment or a fear of being judged for what you are doing with your money or not doing with your money.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's kind of a dichotomy there in that you have individuals with money who don't want to show that for whatever reasons. They may want to not demonstrate like, hey, I'm fine, because they're fearful of what others may think of them. And then you have individuals who don't have money who also don't want to talk about it because they don't want to show as if it's a chink in their armor of, I haven't gotten there yet. But everybody seems to strive for this American dream. Like, that is still out there, and one of the things about American culture seems to be that you always think you're going to get there, and you're always striving to get there, which kind of opens up the world of entrepreneurship, right? This is the idea that a business that you could start could get you to that promised land. You both have experience both in the lending side and in the coaching side of the world of business and family business. As we go into our next segment, you've had a chance to see Jermale and Scott and Christine have a conversation about money from a business and a family business perspective. What were your overall thoughts on what you witnessed when listening to them share their testimony? I'll start with you, Ellie.
Well, first of all, I think it's a fantastic conversation that they're having. I think that all three of them shared like nuggets of gold, and I can't wait to dive into them a little bit deeper. But what we talked about in this segment, what they talked about in this segment was really around perception of having money or not having money, being a business owner and being perceived as having made it, and how that affects you and your family, whether it's spending or even running your business. So
yeah. Shannon, you're in front of this.
Well, they were so open and honest, which I think a lot of viewers are going to really appreciate, because from the banking side, every business is going to struggle at some point or another. And I think the more we can admit that and be open about it and build those partnerships, which, they discussed during this segment, it's critical. And so I just really appreciated the honesty, and they obviously are all such passionate business owners, and you can see that come through, throughout the whole filming as well.
Yep. Well, right now is a perfect opportunity, so let's go to Lynne Jarman-Johnson with Consumers Credit Union, who's sitting down with Jermale Eddie and Scott and Christine Vogel. Take a look.
So excited to talk about a topic that is near and dear to all of our hearts. We have been so blessed to be able to work alongside with both of you, all three of you, both of you meaning the companies that you represent. Jermale Eddie, you are with Malamiah Juice Bar.
Yes.
I'm with Consumers Credit Union, and we love you as a business partner. Today we're going to really dig deep a little bit about finances and money, and how in the world, as an entrepreneur, you are really digging and grinding it out to make success happen, not only for you but your employees. Scott and Christine Vogel are the owners of Bundt Cakes. You also have a family, and you're raising that family, and opened up this wonderful organization that brings delight to people in West Michigan. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Jermale, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background, and how did you decide, and when did you decide to jump into Malamiah Juice Bar?
Oh wow, this takes me back. So I think it was maybe 2012. Just kind of at a job that didn't provide a whole lot of excitement or fun. It was kind of one of these things where, you go to work, you get a paycheck, you pay the mortgage, and that was it. The day ends, the day starts. And my wife and I were watching a documentary called Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, and it was on juicing. And we saw that, and my initial thought with that film was, wow, this guy's showing you how your body can heal itself from the inside out, from ailments, from medications and all this. But more than that, it was, I think I can make some good juice at home better than in the store. And so that got me in the kitchen, or as I say, in the lab, just making up different recipes and getting my kids involved. They were loving the juice. And then brought along the whole notion of a weight loss journey. And a buddy of mine kind of took me on this challenge, and he ended up losing about 55 pounds in 60 days.
Wow.
Alongside of his doctor.
That's awesome.
In a healthy way.
In a healthy way, and kind of for him, he would say he got his life back. And I think at that point we knew we had a business, but the business was not necessarily juice. It was a health business to be able to gift that to our community. So our initial thoughts was that we wanted to be able to have a product, to have something, a service that could help reduce the health disparities in the African American community. And we felt like juice was the way to go. I mean, who doesn't like a good juice? Who doesn't like a good smoothie? And then later on, we kind of rolled into their salad. So we started the business in 2013. So we've been going strong for a little over 8 years now.
Well, we're going to get to how your family is all in on this too, and how this really does impact, running a business, but then also running a family at the same time. It's such a eye-opening experience. How did you decide, both of you, that you were going to come into a market with a brand new franchise, all in?
Man, it's funny now. You look back, it's like hindsight's 2020. We were probably pretty crazy for doing it. Really, the genesis of it is we moved here from Boston now 7 years ago, and we absolutely fell in love with West Michigan. And we were in that cycle of every 5 to 7 years we were moving for very positive reasons. The companies that we were at were growing or was recruited by another company for an amazing opportunity for our family. But we wanted to lay down roots and make this our forever home. And the company I was with was phenomenal, but we just said, you know what, we want to make this our home. I mean, Chris, you said to me that, hey, you know, if you get another job and you leave the area, I'm staying here. You can come back on weekends. But no, we wanted to have a business that could give back to the community that we loved and to feel good every day we woke up like that we were maybe making a little bit of a difference.
Christine, you have the kids, you close your eyes, you start a brand new business from scratch, basically, that people had not heard of, I don't think, in this market.
Yeah.
Tell me about the nights. You know, were there times that you were going, what are we doing?
There were a lot of times that I said that. You know, in the early days, you know, Scott was there early and he was there late. And I would come in, our youngest wasn't in school yet, so we sent her to daycare for the first time. And I would go in, you know, for the hours that I could before everybody came home from daycare or school. So I was working, and then I came home and I was mom. And 3 young kids, you know, everybody needed something. It was homework, it was, you know, getting dinner ready, it was the basics of life. And then Scott would come home, you know, late and finish up what he had to finish up, and we'd do it again the next day. And after a while, you're like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? We did this for a reason. I don't see that happening right now. When are we going to get there? Because it, you know, you question it, and life gets crazy.
I was going to say the thing that I think we underestimated, I mean, I worked in very large multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies. You forget about the process, the infrastructure. There's an HR department, an IT department. And being
You were all of that.
you are every one of those departments, and you're dealing with workers' comp, you're dealing with insurance, to IT issues, to whatever, all these new things that you never dealt with. And then, you know, you don't have an HR department when you're having trouble with associates, and there's no playbook really at the end of the day for dealing with certain situations. And it was, at first, you're like, this is so hard. You get it. You really get how tough it is, A, for a business to be successful, but also how tough it is to operate it and to still feel like you're living your values and you're doing the right thing each step of the way.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's very interesting time frame right now, time period for small business, for food and beverage businesses especially. And when I say small, I talk about micro small. So not the SBA definition, but micro small, you know. For us especially though, because right now, the way that I feel is I feel like it's year 2 of my business all over again. So not year 1 where you were just trying to you know, make it day to day, although we're at that spot, but it feels like, okay, I kind of know a little bit, but things are changing rapidly, daily. And so whether it's, you know, mask mandates, whether it's vaccinations, whether it's, you know, customers and how they feel about those things, I mean, there's so many different variables when it comes to running a business today, and it's quite daunting. You know, I think I'm probably getting the same amount of sleep now as what I got in those first couple of years, because I'm out early in the morning and I'm out late at night, to the point that my 5-year-old was like, hey, Daddy, do you work at night? Because when he's waking up in the morning, I'm just coming in from delivering some juice or from, you know, fixing a sink or an ice machine or something like that. And also when he goes to bed, I'm leaving to go take care of something. And so it's been pretty hard on my family, but, you know, I am grateful for my spouse that she also recognizes where we are as business owners, as a family-owned business, and that this is just how it is. And, you know, that kind of support helps me to you know, keep smiling and to keep going. But overall, I think when we think about issues of staffing and even traffic, it's very tricky, because, you know, you want to have enough staff to be able to handle customers coming in, but you need enough customers coming in to be able to have staff to support to actually pay. And so we know that the landscape right now, is some would say, is an employee market where they have options now. And so we, right along with other businesses, increased our wages. We're out here trying to keep up with the McDonald's, and there's been a local pizza joint here that was offering $25 an hour. I would love to get paid $25 an hour at my business, and signing bonuses. I would love to get a signing bonus, but we're doing that. So we made a commitment to raise it so that we can attract and retain. And we're not seeing enough customers coming to the door to even make up for what we said we'd be able to pay. So so my check has been slashed several times so that my employees can be taken care of, because we're an employee first business.
So let's ask this question. How important is communication between you and your spouse and your employees? Because it sounds to me like this has to be in every, you literally are losing sleep at night. And as you watch, what are you doing to get help?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very interesting time. I think a lot of people are dealing with this. I think the help piece actually comes by way of having someone to talk to, having someone who, maybe it's, for me, my accountant. My accountant really loves his clients, and I haven't seen that before. I'm my fourth accountant in 8 years, and I wish I would have had this guy from the very beginning. So talking with that individual, as well as for me, the help comes from way of self-help, where in the mornings I am just trying to get a little 15, 20, 30 minutes time to myself with some coffee on the front porch, and that kind of recharges me. But as a business owner with this business, and also as a side note, earlier this year we started a wholesale company called Malamiah Juice Company that has this cold pressed juice has a 90-day shelf life, and the goal is to be able to be on store shelves across the country, and we're probably one of 2 or 3 Black-owned wholesale juice businesses in the country. And so it's a really big deal, but therefore I'm running 2 businesses during the pandemic. And because the pandemic has affected my business so much, guess what else? I'm working a 40-hour-a-week job while doing this. But that's what I have to do if I want the business to continue, if I want to be able to allow the business to support our employees in our community, as well as if I want to keep my home, and be able to have food on the table. So at this point right now, for me, for Jermale and my household, we are doing what we have to do so that at some point we can do what we want to do.
We don't own the Nothing Bundt Cakes brand. The name of our company is Ohana Ventures, and that's Ohana's Hawaiian for family. And so we see our team as an extension of our family. And so when your business isn't doing well, you're still supporting their families and these employees, and you're also supporting your own family. And I think the 2 times where it was probably the most stressful for me, at least, there have been multiple times, but early on was making the decision to do this. And the second time was hiring the employees for the first time. That first, 15 employees where I just said to myself, we're responsible for these people and their livelihoods. And I think the eye-opening thing for that, through the lens of just your team, before you even kind of dive into yourself as a person, I was in corporate America managing people, a lot of which were making 6 figures. Like, money wasn't an issue, or they hit it well. And then in dealing with managing hourly employees, where it truly was at the surface and you could see it paycheck to paycheck. And you could see from ordering out lunch when that first paycheck came to scraping by with whatever was in their fridge for their lunch. And you could just see it, and if they didn't have the hours that they needed, like they got sick or something, they may not make a car payment or something. And so you see that, you get a front row seat, and when you care, it kind of emotionally tugs at you before you even get into your own realm.
Well, yeah, and then in our own realm, we struggled in the beginning. The business was struggling. We weren't known around here. You need to get the word out. So we're struggling. It's our business, and so we're using our personal money to prop the business up, which makes then your personal finances are hurting. Now, as that's going on, our middle child, our son, has severe asthma. So he needs medications, and those aren't cheap, and we probably didn't have the insurance that we should have had. So we're spending thousands upon thousands of dollars for medication for him that we really didn't have, because you know, the money that we did have was going to the business. The money that we wanted to make at the business wasn't really coming home. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Well, I think you opened the door to just the challenge that we ran into is you're opening up a business in a new city where you don't know a lot of people. Grand Rapids, as we learned, is a very close-knit community. It's the smallest big town you'll ever live in. And we had a business plan. We had a very conservative way of how we capitalized the business. And we had a big cushion at home and a big cushion in the business with working capital. And man, we burned through cash so
fast.
Quickly. And it was my own stubbornness. We didn't lay off employees, even though the business it warranted that we did, because I was like, we made this commitment. Our core value is Ohana. And then, you know, we said, but we're fine. And so we kept on propping up the business with our own money. And then Rylan got sick. He was in and out of the ER. So it was that perfect storm where you're bleeding cash in the business, but you're also bleeding cash at home. And by the way, we were being very much the face of the company, trying to get the word out. So you have this epic storm where 2 hurricanes have met up and you're in the eye of it and you're just sitting there with a smile on your face because you've got to keep propelling the business forward. So I think that kind of, I think, sets the table of everyone sees people walking into your business, but they don't necessarily understand the financials of what it takes to get over a hump to start making money or start at least breaking even.
It's absolute real life every day. And there are so many people right now that are watching that are feeling that pain, whether they be an hourly employee. Doesn't matter the zeros behind a salary, to be honest. I mean, it really has to do with how are you learning to talk about your money, but also learning how to ask for help when it's needed. Jermale, did you find that when you were starting now your secondary business, you see that I see as a light. You know, there's a light that I can see, similar to what we just heard with Christine and Scott, that we're going to get there. I'm going to get there. But it has to be very difficult to watch how your family's affected on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think it is. And I would say that I feel on most days that we're going to get there. But there's been times where, you know, I'm near tears and anxiety at night, and I'm like, I quit. It's a wrap. You know, and you know, the next day, you know, something changes overnight, and it's like, all right, I can do this again. Next day, you know, I quit. I can't, you know, I can't meet payroll. Like, how am I going to do this? And so, kind of what you all were saying, it's a lot of smiling going on with a lot of these small businesses. Whether it's on Facebook, you got your products looking good, staff is, you know, doing cheers with the beverages or whatever, and it's looking real nice, very professional photos. But a lot of times, it's a facade from what's going on in the background. It's like having a brand new shiny car with a blown motor. The motor you can't see from the outside, you can't tell. There's warning lights if you just put the key in. How many of us have warning lights going on? How many of us have had warning lights going on, whether you're a business owner or not? And we still smile, we still make the social media presence, we still do the interviews, you know, when the news comes in, all chipper and happy at like crazy hours in the morning, because they seem like they only want to do interviews at like when it's dark out or something. You know, we're all happy, realizing that, you know, we got bills on our tables. I spoke to a small business owner in town who got served papers one day from the IRS, and we're in tears in the back. And about 15 minutes later, there was a customer ready to come in and pick up their order in the front. They had to turn that off. There is what I would say is entrepreneurial trauma, stress-induced trauma that we're not talking about, that people aren't talking about. Maybe with spouses, maybe, but if you're having a good day with your spouse, you don't want to bring it down by talking about the business, even though you both are also thinking about the business in the back of your mind. But you don't want to do that. So that's happening. And there's not much people are doing about that because folk aren't asking. When someone says, hey, how are you doing? You're going to be, oh, great. But you're not. and they probably don't want to hear the whole story of why you're not great, you know. And so there's just a lot of that going on. And then if you have a family at home, they're feeling that as well. You can shield the kids as much as you want, but you're going to be a little short fused every now and then. I found myself over the last 8 years apologizing to my kids for blowing up on them or snapping at them for something really simple. For them being, you know, whatever their age was at the time is irritating to me. Right, you know, whether they're playing Legos too loud or you step on a Lego, getting upset.
Step on a Lego. We all know that.
But
We've been there.
that yelling or whatever that may have been didn't come from that situation. It came because of what one is dealing with at the business. And then you sit for a minute and have to go back and apologize. Hey, you know, Daddy, sorry, that was not your fault. I got some other things going on. And the kids still love you, you know, no matter what, which is it's just so much grace right there. But it does affect the family because of how much time you can give. And we haven't even talked about COVID and school education at home while you're running a business. And if your kid gets sick, you know, my kids have been at our shop with books and tablets trying to do some iReady school stuff. You know, when childcare would fall through, they'd be underneath the counter in a poo chair, you know, drinking a juice. But it's all in, and most of the time, maybe your significant other signed up for it with you, but the rest of the family didn't. They end up being casualties of it, and you hope that you are at least paving the way to make it worth it in the future, but you don't know.
You mentioned something earlier that I think is so important, and that is your trust amongst people who are professionals that are helping you out. It also sounded like there was a little bit of a bumpy road with some.
Yeah.
How important is that to find the right mentors, the people around you that are professionals to really help listen and learn?
Yeah, I think it's important. I don't think anyone you know, watching this, listening to this, whatever, there's no one out there that's self-made. Somebody helped, somebody nudged, somebody encouraged you, somebody fanned the flame. You know, somebody planted a seed, somebody watered it, somebody fertilized it. And so it's very important to find that support. And that could be in friends, it could be in peers. It also could be in someone who is where you want to be, or someone who's in a totally different field, because sometimes that's good too, to have an outside perspective. But I'll say that depending on your industry, it's difficult still. So for me, starting a juice bar, I had hardly no one that I could ask in West Michigan about some of the juice bar specific things I was going through. Now maybe, how do you know, what do you use for accounting? You know, who do you bank with? Yeah, but the other stuff I couldn't. And then you got people who don't want to return phone calls and who won't return phone calls or who don't have time for the little person. And so you find yourself again, you know, just trying to do it on your own, And I think that that's the piece that many don't realize is that, you know, I'm doing bookkeeping, I'm making juice, I'm managing people, I'm repairing equipment, I'm delivering juices, you know, all of these different things to just get the end product that you don't see day to day. There's an engine under the hood that you don't see when it's driving down the highway, but yet we're driving and we're getting off at exits. But, you know, to have that support, it means everything to me and to most entrepreneurs.
Jermale mentioned something, I think, Scott and Christine, that is so impactful, and it's about what we don't talk about. You know, you are raising your kids in Forest Hills. This is with the Cascade Community Foundation. When you live in Forest Hills, people automatically say, well, you've made it.
Yeah.
You know? And yet we're not talking about the fact that paycheck to paycheck is paycheck to paycheck for, it could be your neighbor, it could be you.
I mean, if you came to our house right now, there is duct tape holding some of the hardwood floor together because it's old and it's warped, and number one, we don't have time to fix it. Number two, we know at some point we would like to do more than that, and we're not ready for it yet. I mean, there's that. There's, you know, siding on the house that needs to get fixed. There's grass that needs to get cut that nobody has the time to do. You know, from afar, you come and look and you think, oh, they have it all together. People don't see that kind of stuff. They see you at the business with your smile on and the people coming in the door, and you've made it, and you're making all the money and you're doing all this stuff. And the reality is it's a struggle, and it's a struggle with the business. It's a struggle at home. It's a struggle with finding time for everything and finding the money for everything. And it's right. Not everybody talks about that. They see one thing, and they're missing that part of it.
Why is it that you think we just are hesitant to be very open about something that every one of us deals with on a day-to-day basis?
I think it comes down to perception. No one wants to. I think when you stare failure in the mirror, you realize that's where the stress is. Like if the business fails, I still have my family, right? But it's a public failure, right? Everyone sees you fail. That's where the stress truly was.
I'll say that during this whole pandemic thing, we've had some community members here and there drop off checks.
That's awesome.
Drop off
That's
cash.
awesome.
Like, hey, I just felt this on my heart to give this to you. It's $25. That's all I got. Because you didn't have to give anything, I'm grateful. Some might have had a 0 or 2 after that decimal point. You just never know. And I think for us, it's been us sowing seeds over the years as business owners, that when the pandemic hit and when times got rough, that some of those customers, in a lot of ways, those seeds were bearing fruit, and they came around and said, how can we support? And so I think that's a big deal. I got to look at this thing in so many different ways, not just what's up with my business, but what's up with my community, what's up with my family, what's up with the neighbors. So I think our survival as a business has been a community survival thing that we didn't anticipate, because we didn't do any of the things that we've done as a business for the community to just say, hey, one day we're going to be in a bad situation, the pandemic's going to hit, and you're going to give back to us. That's just how it ended up happening. And we're grateful for what we were able to do, even though current day speaking, we're not able to, donate to organizations or be a part of different things. But I believe that the community believes in us and saw what we were doing and knows that if we could do it now, we would. And therefore, it's like we're going out and we're getting this continuous hug every time we go out in the community to do something.
I think that one of the things that sets both of your businesses apart is the word give. And you mentioned it. We are number 3 in the United States of philanthropic giving. One thing that I've seen from both of your companies is that giving. And you're saying right now, you know what, because of the pandemic, there might not be as much of it. But Jermale, you have been continuously not only giving of yourself and your time, but of healthy products to the community.
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis.
Yep. And again, some of it has been from customers saying, hey, I want to buy 100 juices or smoothies, take it to whatever hospital you want. And some of it has been, we just know there's a need. And when I think about shopping and spending money locally, we as a small local business and other small businesses, we're the ones that are donating and giving products to someone's grandma who's coming out from chemo. We do things like that often. We don't put it in social media. We don't put it out there that, that we're giving away one of our healthier products to someone who's battling cancer or someone who has something else going on, where we're making deliveries far out of our range to be able to help someone else out. And, for me, that's just something that was instilled in me from my mother who would do that. I'm not too proud to say that we are still struggling. We may not make it to 2022. We didn't think we were going to make it to 2021, and then we thought 2021 the summer we were going to kill it this summer, and we didn't. We didn't see an increase in numbers. We're still down 45%. So we may not make it. We're just propped up falsely by the kickstand of grants and loans. But hell, who wants more loans to run their business? to have their family operate. Not us, So, we're out here every day thinking and hoping that it's going to get better, that the next day is going to get better, the next day is going to get better. And that hope is kind of what keeps us going.
Scott and Christine, do you also find that when you look at the giving part, Mayor Bliss ran up to you yesterday, just to say thank you for all the different gifts you've given throughout the pandemic. It's still, though, very hard. But that is your philosophy.
Well, before we opened our doors, we established our core purpose and mission is delivering happiness one bite at a time to the community we love. It's not about social media posts. Actually, someone pulled me aside and said to me, if a tree fell in the woods and no one's there, would it make a sound? And his point to me was, if you're doing all this good in the community, and by the way, no one knows you in this community because you aren't from here, maybe you should tell some people about it. And we started to reluctantly, but we realized it's what we needed to do to keep the business going. Mm-hmm. But since then, we've pulled back, and we just have fun just giving.
And the great thing is that, we started posting a little bit about it, just to get the word out that we're here. Other people post when we do that, and that's not the reason that we do it, but they're excited and they want to do something for us. So that something for us is them posting, hey, look what I got today. Look who brightened up my day. And it's fun to see the support that way. The neighborhood that we live in is such a tight-knit neighborhood, and one of the first things that happened when COVID hit and when everything was shut down, our neighborhood got together unbeknownst to us and ordered a ton of cake. Let's say, 20 houses or whatever, ordered cake and ordered way more than they would ever need, and ordered it in secret, and all of a sudden, somebody needed a delivery, and they needed a delivery to, this house and this house. And to have people like that, some who don't even know you, they just know that you're a neighbor. It's such a good feeling to know that people are there for you and to support you and, just help.
Well, this series is all about helping, right? It's about, learning what needs are out there, and also about being able to say, hey, I'm open to talking about finances and money, and your sharing is amazing. Jermale, I would love to hear from you, and I'll ask the same question. What are your top 3 words of advice for individuals who may be struggling right now, who are listening and saying, this is amazing, and it's awe-inspiring to listen what you're doing every day?
Mm-hmm. So I would say I would encourage and advise that individual to create or look for a group of supporters in the industry or not in the industry. Someone that, even if it's 2 or 3 people, so a group doesn't have to be 50 or 100, but a few folk that you can bounce ideas off of, that you can tell the war stories to, and they won't look at you crazy. They'll give you a little triage. I have a couple different group texts that at least one of them I know we're talking just about every day on some stuff. Some of it's funny, some of it's serious, but really to do that, in one of those groups, someone had a machine that went down and wasn't able to get any money to get it. It was like $800, and the other 2 is just 3 of us in this text, and the other 2 we were like, you know what? I think I got 400. The other guy was like, I think I got 500, and we became each other's bank. We became each other's financing. And in our community, that doesn't happen that often, where someone has a little extra change that they're willing to give over to you to get you through the tough times. We don't know when we're going to get that back. But we know that if that happened to one of us, if I had a juicer down, these individuals would have given to help me get that juicer up so that I can fulfill some larger orders. So I think it's, getting folk together to get that network. I think the other piece, which is very difficult, it's very, very difficult, is to tell someone to take care of themselves, to think about their health holistically. I have a health and wellness business, but I'll be the first to say that my personal health has taken the back seat, the furthest back seat You know, I'm reminded of that, you know, when I walk by the mirror in the morning. But a little jiggle more than they used to. But it's really, you know, thinking about, you know, can I get some steps in? Can I walk? You know, what can I do for some quiet time? Should I get into journaling? Is there a podcast that can help, you know, give me some peace? You know, can I afford to get the Headspace app, which by the way is 40% off right now, but for some meditations and things. So I think that health and wellness holistically is a great thing, because nobody is going to take care of you but yourself. Nobody. And then I think the last thing is I would put it in the word, I would say grace. That right now we're living in a grace-driven, a grace-needing society. And sometimes it feels like we're grace anemic sometimes. People get a little excited. But I think the key to right now surviving this is to recognize that you need grace from others, but you really need to give yourself grace. If you're not doing, you know, if you're not cranking out, you know, 3 books a month like you used to, give yourself grace. You know, if you don't have time to make that elaborate dinner, give yourself grace. You know, leftovers are fine, but also give grace to other people. You know, when the server forgets something, when there's a longer line and you can't get reservations, or your favorite store has to close early because they don't have enough staff, give them grace.
You know, the other day I was picking up groceries and I had to wait way longer than I've ever waited. I was sitting in the car waiting for them, and the woman came out to the car and apologized, and she's like, we only have 3 people working here. And I get it, you know, the labor shortage, you know, we're struggling, they're struggling, but it really is. She just needed somebody to be like, it's okay, you know, I get it. And you really do with people who are working, with your family, with yourself. You really need, now is the time that we all need a little extra grace.
And I think everything you said is spot on. I think a couple things I would tack on, and this comes from going on this business venture has been the most humbling experience of my entire life. It really has. And it's from a humble place of saying, just admit to yourself if you're struggling. And just say it out loud, and it's okay. And then take a step, and you said it well, surround yourself by amazing people. And I think when we were struggling as a business, we started, when the moment it got real, where we asked ourselves, do we have enough money to make payroll? That's when it gets real, payroll for the business and at home. But when we came out of a really horrible Christmas, which you're supposed to be doing cartwheels in our area or our field, we walked out of there, and it's January, where everyone's new year, new you. Like, people aren't going to be walking through your door. What worked for us was to go around and just admit to people, like Consumers Credit Union. We met with you guys saying, well, things aren't going the way we planned. And you aren't supposed to admit that to your bank, right? And we did that in all of our partners. We looked at all of our partners, and ones who didn't care if we were open or not, we got rid of. And we got new ones, but we surround us by amazing people that we told them, hey, we're struggling. And here are our steps, and this is how we're going to get out of it, and had open ears. You aren't going to solve everything by yourself. It's okay to ask for help. And once you do that step of doing that, just take a plan and move yourself forward. But I think the biggest thing that all this experience has taught us, COVID, non-COVID, struggle with business, is gratefulness. Be grateful for what you do have, not what you don't have. And I think it sounds like a sermon at church, right? But every morning I wake up and I have a gratefulness journal. And it can be the simplest things, but realize for everything you don't have, realize all the amazing things you do have. Amazing partners, you have your family. Like where I'm short to the kids, my kids forgive me. I'm grateful for that. For you, not to lose your cool with me as I'm running around doing 10,000 things, but it's those things are going to help carry you through those tough seasons, because those are real. And that, I think that's the best I can tack on to your amazing list of items.
Well, this has been such a journey. What a great conversation. And Cascade Community Foundation has just a plethora of videos that we're going to be focusing on that really showcase not only the struggles that people have, the successes that they have. And I think what I love about our discussion today is it's so real, you know, and it's so powerful to hear that you can ask for help, that there are people that will listen, and if there's a perception out there that you're just smiling all the time, it's okay to ask, are you okay? And do you need a little bit of a different help that nobody's even thought of? So thank you, all three of you, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Hey all, I'm Scott Dobson with Consumers Credit Union. I've worked at our at-work department for about 10 years, and as you know, about 75% of all of our employees struggle every week to balance their paycheck versus their mortgage versus their car payments, and they're in a juggling act all year long. What we do at Consumers at Work is help your employees stop doing that for a second, take a minute, understand where their finances are, and be able to balance their paycheck every week. We help with onboarding, we can do it in a digital and safe way, and we can come back with educational products all year long to help your employees do the very best with their paycheck. For business owners, we can help you with small business loans and medium-sized business loans and deposit accounts. If your employees need help, they want to get off the rat race, they want to quit juggling every single paycheck and be a little bit more focused on the job that they do for you and be happier about the paycheck that they get from you, give Consumers Credit Union a call. We'll help your employees stop doing this.
Certainly an eye-opening and wonderful conversation. We thank Lynne, Jarman-Johnson, and of course Jermale and Scott and Christine for sharing that testimony. We're back now with Ellie and Shannon. Ellie, right out of the gate, this is something that I found so profound in the testimony that Christine shared, and it was the idea of being Mom Plus. So they've started this franchise, Nothing Bundt Cake. Scott's doing the work, but Christine brings value into the business too. And then on the bookend of that, Scott's still at work, but she's doing the mom stuff. That's an incredible, one, person, and two, I don't think people realize that when they're getting into a business, how much work it is.
People often underestimate the amount of time it does take to start a business, and it's not just in startup phase. It's year 1, it's year 2, year 3, as Jermale was just talking about. It's when COVID hits. It's when you have like the upticks and downturns in the economy. I don't think that we think about starting a business in a kind of a long-term continuum. We think that, oh, we'll just get this up and running in 6 to 12 months. But I think specifically we're talking about Christine. And there is the significant other that's not necessarily in the day-to-day business. It's still in the day-to-day business, whether they're in the retail shop or not, so to speak. It doesn't have to be a retail shop, obviously, because they're providing support both at home as well as emotional support. They are the sounding board. They are oftentimes the ones that are out making money to help the business continue to run or help the family navigate the startup of a business. And so we don't necessarily talk about the role of, as one of my friends in the family business world, Wayne Miller, likes to say, the CEO, the Chief Emotional Officer of the company. But it is very real and incredibly important. So I think...
Yeah, when you're thinking of the idea of getting into a business, you think of this idea of, well, if I push this button, everything is now going to operate, and then I can set the button aside. You must see this as people are coming into the bank to talk to you about a commercial loan or a small business loan. You're seeing them dialogue to you the opportunity that they're seeing, but at the same time, you know that there's quite a bit more hurdles than just pushing that button.
Sure, yes. And what I liked in this interview with Jermale and the Vogels is they kind of walked us through that initial concept where Jermale was saying that he knew that there was disparity in the African American community. He knew that he wanted, I think he said, a vehicle for good that tastes good. He saw the need that was out there, and then same with the Vogels, they knew the spirit of Grand Rapids, that people wanted businesses that will give back. And then I would say on their side of things too, they started a franchise. I mean, they didn't start the franchise, but their business was a franchise. So even though it was new to this market, it's still a proven model. So I think from the banking side, that does help us get an understanding of like, okay, while this is new to Grand Rapids, Greater Grand Rapids, we have a little bit of history to look at. And I loved that Jermale kind of alluded to the fact that when he started off, I think their space was like 312 square feet. And I love that. Start simple, test your concept, don't overwhelm yourself from a capital perspective. If you can keep your overhead low starting out, it's going to allow you to be more flexible, as things come up, because guaranteed in that first year, things that you didn't foresee are going to come up. Second year, like you said, third year, it's not you get up and running in 6 months and hey, everything's great, this is smooth. There's always going to be those hurdles. So I think planning, and then you're always going to need more reserves than you think. So making sure that your banker works with you to build in that working capital budget too is really important.
Scott said something, he said it was very tough in the beginning because it's not just your family. He wanted to bring some core values into the franchise that they began, but he quickly realized that he's also supporting multiple families in the employees that he has. So talk a little bit about that, Shannon, and when you're in your world, how are you helping guide prospective business owners or existing business owners through some of that weight?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the small business owners that we work with, they are so in tune with their employees, and you felt that with the Vogels and Jermale too. They care so much about them, and I think payroll is one of those things that gets business owners more nervous than anything else. Even just making sure it goes through on time, making sure the payroll processing is correct, because they do not want to do wrong by their employees. And I think we saw this in 2020 when a lot of businesses, they couldn't sustain having all of those employees. Luckily there was programming out there, but I think we like to work with businesses that take that holistic approach. We have an at-work program that even kind of comes in and does that financial wellness training. And I think that's so important too, making sure if you do have hourly employees that they're building a budget and they can make their car payment. And if they're not, you want to hear about that and kind of be that guide and even, be a mentor for them as a small business owner.
Yeah.
So with a lot of my clients, there are presidents and CEOs of multi-generational family businesses. And they're the next generations kind of stepping into their parents' shoes or grandparents' shoes or whatnot. And this business is literally a part of their family. They grew up in this business. It is a part of their legacy. It's a part of their parents' legacy. It is like ingrained in their DNA. And the team around them, which they often call like the employees of the company, are literally family sometimes, and then oftentimes they've been with the company since the next generation who's running the company has been very small. So they grew up with a lot of these employees. So it's real when it comes to having a family business, and these employees have been with you your entire life, and now you have to manage not only the company but often the people who watched you grow up. It is a real thing, and it's something that needs to be handled with some. I think the word maturity comes to mind, but it's also some self-awareness. I think is really the word that I'm looking for. Just kind of understanding what hat you're wearing at any given time, because in good times and in bad times, this is a company, and this company needs to be successful in order to provide for sometimes the thousands upon thousands of families.
Entrepreneurial trauma, that stood out to me as soon as Jermale said it. It's something I've experienced, because when you're in a business setting and you get hit with something that you were not expecting, there is a wake of that that's going to have so much ramifications. What were your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh, when he said entrepreneurial trauma, I was like, yes. I've never heard that term before. I don't know in your world, maybe you've heard it, but I had never heard that term before, and I was like, oh my gosh, that explains so much with my clients. And there's I think there's trauma as coaches, and there's trauma with a small t and there's trauma with a big T. And so I'm not going to qualify what trauma people are experiencing, but I know for me as an entrepreneur, I definitely had trauma with a small t. Am I going to be able to make any money? Is my husband going to tell me to go back to work for somebody else? There's a lot of things. Am I going to be able to pay this person? Am I going to have to refund? There's a lot of things that happen that we just don't talk about when we're starting a business, or we don't talk to others about. Nobody else tells us. And I think this entrepreneurial trauma, it doesn't just have to be COVID. It could just be the uprooting of your family in some form or fashion when, in this case, when you're starting an entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah, and there's a physical manifestation, I feel like, with it too. And I saw you, Shannon, nodding your head when we mentioned entrepreneurial trauma. What was your thoughts when Jermale said that?
Yeah, I mean, and I think they gave such great examples because like we said earlier, every business is going to come up against challenging times. I see that time and time and again. And I think it's, what do you do in those moments? Are you a deer in the headlights, or are you going to take action? And these business owners are action oriented. And with Jermale, he gave an example of he expanded his business. So, the retail was suffering a little bit given the circumstances. So wholesaling it is. Now he started a second business. He also picked up a second job. I mean, it's things like that. It's such grit, and I know our CEO likes that word too. That's what you have to have as a business owner.
If I may also, so entrepreneurial trauma, you're absolutely right. It does affect you. You're in fight, flight, freeze, right? It affects your safety response. And you, as Jermale said, you have to smile. Actually, I think that all three of them said you have to smile through it. No matter what's happening at home, you have to present to the world that everything is okay, which causes some stress and anxiety just in that in of itself. And so what I like to tell my clients is that no matter what's happening out there, how can you set yourself up for success? And I think, Shannon, you mentioned partners. I call it setting up your success team. Who can you have around you, like your banker, like your accountant, as Jermale said. Finding the right fit of trusted advisors that you can share with them anything and everything, and it's not going to be one person. I know for me, when I was going through burnout and I kind of had this health crisis, I had 7 people on my success team, and that was just my health. I don't think it serves us to not talk about we're using the word entrepreneurial trauma, but the ups and downs of life. So.
Well, and Jermale mentions putting on this facade. I mean, he says that he gets asked, "How are you?" and the response is "Great," and then inside he's exploding because he's like, "It is not great. Help! I need something."
Yeah.
But then he mentions something where he doesn't want to talk about the problem, and nobody wants to hear about the problem. Is that the case? I mean, is it just a general greeting? But I think as a business owner, you really do want to talk through it, even if it's just somebody on the sidewalk where you're like, I need to talk through this real quick.
Yeah, well, I think you said it's such a Midwest thing. I'm great. And I think that's to your everyday customer, your neighbor. But I think going back to your success team and those partners that, they really understand your business, where you're at. I think those are the people where let's be transparent, let's be open, let's have those tougher discussions, and when you can build that trust starting from the beginning, that's critical, I would say. But yeah, just to the everyday, to your neighbor, you want to just be fine. Everything's good. Right. You don't want to show any weakness.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that it comes from vulnerability too. You're not going to be vulnerable with everybody and anybody.
Right.
You're going to be vulnerable with people that you trust and have a relationship with. And that vulnerability, I think, is really key. I know for my success as a coach, as a business owner, like as soon as I started getting vulnerable with my success team and my peers, like my business just exploded because I was able to really truly talk about what was standing in my way from achieving that next level. And it was myself.
Yeah, and there's a realness to that, right? So there's an organic nature when you start a business, you have a vision, you have these key concepts that you want to tackle, and then there's a realness. And you're kind of starting to get into that. When you became real with yourself and sharing with your success team your own vulnerabilities, all of a sudden there was this breakthrough.
No, it's true. I started doing a lot of work with authenticity, especially in family business. And I had one of my friends who's like a 4th generation family business owner, and he's like, Ellie, authenticity doesn't exist in family business. You can't be authentic in family business. I'm like, oh, I beg to differ, you can. It just can be a little bit challenging when you have a recognizable last name, and you really have to kind of do your own work in order to kind of put yourself out there, because the fear of judgment is absolutely real.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you see different people coming into one person, maybe it's a husband and wife, and one person has a very different money mindset than the other person. Maybe one person is very conservative, they save all their money, they don't spend anything. The other person's like, it's not a big deal, we're gonna make it.
Yeah.
And I think that some of the stress around money and is this stress. It is that my significant other has a very different money mindset than I do, and I don't know how to bridge that gap.
Yep, couples, even just business partners that have no relation, but one person is all in, like, yeah, let's take that next step. Now is the time, and you have your other conservative side. And so sometimes, like, people like us are the moderator or mediator between this circumstance or what they're looking for. And so, but I think, sometimes it can work because you have to have that driver of force that's pushing it, and they want to take that next step, but then you have the other more conservative side. So sometimes the balance can be good, but no, we definitely see that where you'd have different personalities coming into a business, whether it is a couple or different partners.
So one of the questions I'd like to ask is, how are you actually on the same page?
That's yes.
And then, because if you're thinking, again, this is part of the mindset, if you're thinking we're not on the same page, then you're going to think of all the reasons how you're not on the same page. But if you start to think, okay, we're actually on the same page in a lot of ways, list all those reasons, and now you can just solve the gap.
Yes, because a lot of times the goal is the same. The
Yes.
end goal is the
Yes.
same. It's the how are we going to get there? Okay, you want to increase revenue by 20% by next
Yes.
year. Okay, we both want to do that, but how are we going to get there? Do you have to invest heavily into this equipment? Is there another way to do it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So just solving for that one problem versus we're just not on the same page whatsoever.
Right.
It's overwhelming.
I know.
And we saw that with Scott and Christine, and Jermale and his wife Anissa as well. There seems to be this level of support that they understand what the end goal is and getting there. We don't have the inside information on what it's like at home for them to get there, but they both reference the need for a supportive spouse. I think with Christine and Scott, it's very apparent, both heavily working inside the business, but with Jermale as well. So we're seeing that in these examples that I think are great for our viewers as well to know and be witness to what that circumstance actually looks like, because there's no doubt about it. If you're starting a family business, your family is going to be involved in it. Whether you want that to be the case or not, it's hard to not traverse that line in some kind of way. So, Ellie, with successful generations, what does success look like with your clients?
So when I talk about working in a business with my clients, I absolutely try to make sure that my clients set themselves up for success in multiple different ways. One, they have to take care of themselves. I mean, Jermale talks about this, like having a morning routine. He said 15, 20 minutes on the front porch with a cup of coffee really recharges them. So I make every single one of my clients who are incredibly busy leaders, I make sure that they know what recharges them. And to do those things that recharges them on a daily, at least weekly basis. I also have them manage their mindset. Like, how are they walking in the front door of if they have a retail shop, how are they walking in the front door? And although you can also say, how are they walking in the front door of their house? And are they below the line? Meaning, are they kind of negative? Are they like, oh, I hate work, this has sucked? Or are they above the line, which is like, okay, or even at the line, which is, okay, this was a day, we got through it. Or it was a good day, and this is what I learned. Like, how are you walking in the door, and how do you want to show up? Going back to a little bit about during the tough times, like, why are you in business? Being very, very clear on your why, because if your why doesn't change, like, you would be able to weather any storm. So Jermale went back to work. He got a 40-hour-a-week job in order to support his businesses. And this is a man who will do whatever it takes.
He believes in the why.
He believes in the why, and he's committed to it, and he's gone all in. And so there's some of us who are like, just dip their toe into the entrepreneurial journey, and when something traumatic happens, like COVID, or your bank loan is pulled, not that it would ever happen, or something, like, and it's traumatic, like, they're able to weather the storm because they're committed and all in, and they're very connected with their why.
Shannon, there has to be some resources that are available to people in that beginning stage. They've got the why. You sense across the table from them that they're going to have the passion to do it. But there's some things that have to be put into place to really be successful in many cases.
So I always encourage businesses, when you have this great idea, we're happy to talk to you from the banking side, absolutely, but I would take time to build out that business plan, look at some realistic projections, because those groups, they will help you do market analysis as well, and just be a little bit more realistic, because I think sometimes when you get those projections right out the gate, they're a little optimistic, is generally what I see. And so I think, and just that planning for the worst case scenario. And we're happy to help you at the financial institution too. I would say the more prepared you come that first time around, the better it's going to look if you do need financing. Even if you don't need financing, maybe you're just going to self-fund yourself. Maybe it's only going to take you, $5,000 to get up and going initially. You still need to plan, because things are going to happen and you're going to want to grow. So all of those resources, the SBA website has a ton of amazing tools for building like a business plan kit. So I very much encourage potential entrepreneurs to check out those resources and find other people in your industry. I think people look at it less as competition. People don't see you as a competitor as much as you would think. So if you're approaching someone in retail or in the trucking industry or manufacturing, bounce some ideas off of them. How did they get it? How did they get started? What are the struggles that they saw? What should you be planning for? So try to find someone in that industry too to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Peer groups are where it's at when it comes to building confidence, understanding your blind spots, really seeing around corners. And there are some amazing peer group programs here and mentorship programs here in Grand Rapids. Gender Noah Entrepreneurial Mentorship Program, is that what it is? Yep. There's also the Family Business Alliance. They have a Next Gen peer group program. There is Vistage. That is a kind of or YPO, Young Presidents Organization. These are all peer groups where people, like, you meet on a regular basis, usually once a month, with people who get it, and they've either gone through it or they're going through it, and you walk in knowing you're not alone, and that is just so powerful when you're going. I mean, people talk about it's lonely at the top. It's not a joke. It is lonely at the top. And so to set yourself up for success by joining and surrounding yourself with peers and industry groups, or these peer groups I just mentioned, and your success team, I think is just a really powerful way of moving through the entrepreneurial journey.
The loneliness at the top, I think, is where you're taking note of these resources that they're available to you. And I know Family Business Alliance specifically has been very helpful for my family and business, to lean on people who understand exactly what you're going through. Maybe it's a different widget, but they understand what that family component is, what that life component is, what the weight of that business and the paychecks that you're doling out, what that is, and it's very helpful, very useful tools. That's a great point.
Jermale says at the very end of his, I think, interview, or close to the end, to give yourself grace, to let yourself off the hook. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay, that's a part of it. It's not necessarily the mistakes, it's how you recover from the mistakes, it's what you do next. And that is incredibly important. So again, with everything I've already said about mindset, but just allowing yourself the grace to make mistakes and just know that that's just part of it, and it's okay. I think along those same lines, Justin, I think asking for help is critical. You know, we talked a little bit about the Midwestern mentality of like, I can do it myself, or I'll just rub some dirt on it and keep moving forward. And asking for help is a skill that we're not necessarily taught. We're in school, it's almost like if you ask for help, you're perceived as not smart enough. And I think that really does us a disservice. And I think that the most successful entrepreneurs that I've seen ask for help. They ask for coaching, they ask their lenders, they talk to their accountants, they ask questions. They are very humble about not knowing what they don't know. So they don't have a lot of ego. And instead, they just realize that in order to do their best work, they might need a village to help them. So asking for help. And I think the last thing that I'd like to talk about is something that's near and dear to my heart, which is philanthropy. And giving back, whether it's money or time or talent, it feels good. And so if you are in a stress cycle, if you are overwhelmed, you've got a lot of anxiety, consider giving back to somebody else. It doesn't matter if it's at church or at the shop or just paying it forward with a gift. Whatever it is, it just makes you feel better. And just sometimes that little bit of like dopamine hit, that little bit of like feel good is exactly what you need to get through the rest of your day or the rest of your week.
Very restorative, right? And the philanthropic side of our world, particularly this community, is profound. And I think those that really incorporate that into their business life find greater success in doing that. And it isn't always just on paper as a dollars and cents thing. Sometimes it's right in here in your heart, and sometimes it's just relief that you're searching for. Shannon?
Yeah, and I think we saw that, with the Vogels. I know whenever I'm at the Consumers Credit Union office, I feel like it's a 50-50 chance I'm going to see a nothing Bundt cake there. And it's just a little note of like, hey, it's a Tuesday. That's a perfectly good reason to have a cake.
It is.
And it's just little things like that, giving back. And then Jermale, even he mentioned when people are coming out of the hospital, he might provide them with some juice to really get them rebooted. Writing a thank you card, I know he mentioned, little things like that. And I think giving yourself grace and then giving other entrepreneurs, other businesses grace right now. Like I think the thing that I've been hearing the most, and you probably hear this too from business owners, is like staffing. It's so hard to find enough people right now. And so we might have to wait a little bit longer for our food or juice or wherever it may be, even on the manufacturing cycle, things are taking longer. And I think it's just knowing that this is where everyone's at right now, and giving ourselves grace, giving everyone around us, especially those small business owners, that grace too.
Well, I certainly appreciate the time with both of you. Great advice to give, and I think that the testimony coming out of this segment as well is telling to our audience and viewers. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank all of our guests for today's episode and being a part of this important conversation with the Q&A live stream. I also want to acknowledge our annual partners who make the series possible, including this season's underwriter, Consumers Credit Union. Our next episode is October 27th, and we will be sitting down with Scott Dobson, who will share his own personal story of financial struggle, living paycheck to paycheck, and how he was able to navigate out of those circumstances. If you would like to support our ongoing nonprofit programming like the Q&A Livestream series, please visit qalivestream.org and click donate. On behalf of our board of directors at Cascade Community Foundation, we hope you found this episode helpful. Good night.